to not realizing that this is the biggest story unfolding before their eyes.
Surrounded by friggin' UFOs.
Of a UFO battle in orbit around Earth.
I believe that's 504.
Russell Brand is innocent, and here is why.
Back in September, media outlets around the world, almost all of them here in the West, in the English-speaking world, ran headlines that shocked a lot of readers and viewers. Russell Brand, the movie star, the comedian, now the podcaster, was a sex criminal, a bad man, a sex criminal.
Truth behind these false allegations and a mass of propaganda media coverage of Russell Brand's false allegations are that the media industrial complex, who is controlled by the deep state, has set measures in place to silence Russell Brand for good. Why, may you ask? Because he exposes the truth, real news, real stories, and real evidence, and the groups who are above and in control of our world's political parties and economic social system does not like this. That's the reality that we are in. There is no such thing as freedom of speech, because it exposes the evil that we are controlled by without even knowing.
What was interesting about this is that, in fact, it was the final scene in a long movie that had been playing out for the preceding couple of years outside of public view. This was an attempt to make Russell Brand shut up. Russell Brand has views that diverge from those of most Western governments on big issues, not small things, big issues, questions of economic policy and war and peace. And they decided we have to make this man be quiet.
Tucker's spoken to Putin. The big takeaway appears to be that Russia have no interest in invading NATO countries. Or possibly that's propaganda and you should continue to pay taxes to fund the military-industrial complex. Wait a minute.
Marginal voice is considered a significant enough threat to warrant coordinated media attacks, expenditure on peculiar, clandestine, non-government organisations and think tanks that take their money from the military-industrial complex, from the legacy media, who, by the way, when they're critiquing independent media, they got skin in the game. And what simply began with myself and my partners is tell the truth about things you care about. You shouldn't be surprised that if you attack the most powerful interests in the world, the deep state, powerful corporations, the machinery of war, that you yourself are the recipient of attacks. Why the British government, through the Department of Culture and Media and Sport, the very people that sponsored the new, rather draconian online safety bill, personally contacted the height of these allegations and attacks on me, that contacted social media platforms and asked if I would be demonetized. But they're the body that regulates them. They have the ability to find those organizations. They're the very person who is sponsoring the online.
So these same organisations are the same organisations that shut down UFO disclosure and communication about UFO sightings, recordings, and eyewitness accounts from pilots and people in the armed forces.
Pretty famous and had some means, etc., then the average person stands no chance against these forces.
I'm gobsmacked, absolutely amazed at the truculent resistance by a lot of the legacy media in the United States and in other parts of the world.
Of mainstream news media. It's all out in the open. Hundreds of journalists on the payroll, writing stories for CIA. Back when this came out in the late 70s, we were shocked.
Disinformation or monitoring, but they're actually crushing dissent. That's what they're doing in practice. Dissenting voices are being aggressively crushed by almost any means necessary. The media organizations are collaborated in a way that is unprecedented in order to shut down dissenting voices. Think about the way that I lived when I was younger. I was promiscuous. If anyone wanted to have sex with me, I'd have sex with them. I publicly announced it at the beginning of all shows. The idea that that was some sort of a smokescreen for criminal conduct is absurd. But I recognize now that unless you're willing to be a participant in these systems of compliance and distraction, then you pose some kind of evident threat.
The allegations against Russell Brand were basic tactics to silence someone's platform so they cannot increase their influence on society and change the way that media is constructed, which the legacy media still controls everything we do everything we hear, and COVID is a direct example of that. This is the system that controls our opinions and outlook on life, how we live our lives, the outdated energy systems that we use, and the wars that we are forced to enter. This is the superpower above the governments. This is the deep state.
How the national security state lies to the population, censors the truth in real life.
Yeah, so, we have this State Department outfit called the Global Engagement Center, which was created by a guy named Rick Stengel, who described himself as Obama's propagandist-in-chief. He was the Undersecretary for Public Affairs, which is essentially the liaison office role between the State Department and the mainstream media. Big coordinating mechanisms for the oil and gas industry in a region, for the finance and the JP Morgans and the BlackRocks in a region, for the NGOs in the region, for the media in the region. All of these need to reach a consensus, and that process takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work and a lot of negotiation. From their perspective, that's democracy. Democracy is getting the NGOs to agree with BlackRock, to agree with the Wall Street Journal, to agree with the community and activist groups who are onboarded with respect to a particular initiative.
Some platforms will not have me on.
Why?
They don't like that I'm, an independent thinker.
But if you can't think for yourself, then you're not really free, are you?
She's a woman of colour. What about when they're saying you're racist? Didn't that make you think, why don't you fuck off?
Yeah, it did make me think, why don't you fuck off? You fucking deceitful liars. This is where I speak of a propaganda war, because it's as though they selected certain key words. If we can apply these key words, if enough people repeat these key words, then people won't read any of Hancock's work or look at his series.
Look what the message is. First of all, the message is one of remarkable subordination to power. Now, power in the United States doesn't happen to be in the state. It's not a centralized military bureaucratic state like in the Soviet Union. Right. Power in the United States primarily lies in corporations, in the corporate world. There's very narrow concentration of control over resources, over investment decisions, and so on and so forth. What are the major media? Well, they're huge corporations. Okay, the New York Times, Washington Post, NBC, they first of all are large corporations, quite profitable ones, in fact. Secondly, they're parts of even bigger conglomerates, like, Westinghouse and GE and so on.
It's a matter of worldview. It's arbitrary. A culture decides what's real. What's real in this culture is completely different than what's true in American Indian reality, or Tibetan Buddhist reality, or Hawaiian kahuna reality, or whatever. We have one set of ideas of what's real, which is a very limited one. It's become more and more limited as the centuries have gone on, so that, as poet Rilke said, in talking about the spirit world, the senses by which we can know the spirit world have atrophied. As we don't even have the apparatus in our perceptual capability of knowing much more of reality. It's like we've lost the very senses to know.